We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 44a. This daf is sponsored by Alexander Rosenfeld in memory of Erna Winston. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you'd like to sponsor an Avodah Daf, see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amud, Rabbi Yossi said in the Mishnah that the way you dispose of Avodah Zarah is you grind it up and you throw it into the wind. And the Chachamim in the Mishnah, they asked on Rabbi Yossi, but aren't you benefiting then from the Avodah Zarah? Because the Avodah Zarah essentially becomes like fertilizer. And the Gemara brought a brayso in which Rabbi Yossi now responds to the Chachamim. And Rabbi Yossi says that we find by the Egel, the Pasuk says, Asher asisam es ha'egel lakachti, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I took the Egel, v'esrof oso bo'esh v'akos oso tochon heitev, ad asher dak li'ofar, I ground it up into dust, and then I threw the dust by the stream that went down from the mountain. And so you see from the pasuk itself that the way to dispose of the Avodah Zarah was to grind it up. And the Gemara continues, Amru lo, they said back to him, the Chachamim said back to Rabbi Yossi, Misham Raya, you're bringing a proof from over there, Harehu Omer, but the pasuk over there says, Vayizar al Pnei Hamayim, Vayashkas B'nei Yisrael, it says that he spread it out over the water, and he gave B'nei Yisrael that water to drink. And the whole idea over there is, Lo Neskavin Elo Levod Kon Kesotos, the whole intention over there was to test them like one tests a sota. That was the idea of having them drink from that water. And the Gemara continues, Amar Lahem Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said back to them, V'halo kvar nemar, doesn't it say in the pasuk, V'gam macha hisira migavira, it's talking about Asa, that he removed macha from being queen. That was his mother that he removed from being the queen. Asher Asta, that she made this Avodah Zarah, and the pasuk goes on to say, Vayodak vayisrof b'nachal Kidron, that he ground it up and he put it into the Nachal Kidron, the stream of Kidron. And so again you see that the way of disposing of the Avodah Zarah is to grind it up and throw it into the stream, and apparently there is no concern that you're benefiting from the Avodah Zarah, that it's fertilizer. We'll take a look at the full pasuk over here. Some of these words were missing in the Gemara. V'gam macha aim Asa HaMelech. It says macha, who was the mother of Asa HaMelech, Hesira migavira. Again, he removed her from being the queen. Asher asta la'ashera miflatzas, she made this idol for the Ashera. Vayichros asas miflatzta vayodak vayisrof benachal Kidron. Again, he ground it up. He threw it into Nachal Kidron. And so again, the brayso continues. Amru lo, they said back to him. The Chachamim said back to Rabbi Yossi, Misham Raya, you bring a proof from over there. Nachal Kidron eno megadel tzmochin. Nachal Kidron, it's not able to grow any kinds of vegetation, and that's why there's no concern for fertilizer in that situation. But the Gemara continues and asks, V'lo, is it really true that Nachal Kidron is not able to produce vegetation? And the Mesoches Hashas changes the next word to V'hatnan, but we learned in a Mishnah, Elu v'elu misarvin b'yama, this is talking about the blood from the Mizbeach, the inner Mizbeach, the outer Mizbeach. It all goes into the drain, V'yotzen l'Nachal Kidron, it drains to Nachal Kidron, V'nimkarin l'ganonin l'zevel, and then that water is sold to gardeners as fertilizer, Umoal in bohen, and there would be me'ila if the gardeners wouldn't purchase it for money, they would just take it. That would be a misuse of hekdesh. It would be me'ila. And so from here you see that Nachal Kidron, from here you see that it is able to support vegetation. And the Gemara says to that, Mekomos yeshbo, there are various different locations in Nachal Kidron. Yesh makom megadel tzmachin, some of the areas are able to grow vegetation. V'yesh makom shein megadel tzmachin, other areas are not able to grow vegetation. And the Gemara continues and asks, "My miflatzta, what's the meaning of the word miflatzta?" Again, that was the word that was used by Macha when she made this Avodah Zarah. It uses the word miflatzta. What is that referring to? Amar Rav Yehuda says, "The have a mefalia leitznusa." It intensified the licentious and the illicit behavior, and that follows Kedetani Rav Yosef. That follows what Rav Yosef taught. Kimin zachrus ostala, that she made like the male organ that was part of the Avodah Zarah, v'haisa nivelas lo b'chol yom, and she would have relations with it every single day. And so again, that's the meaning of the word miflatzta. And the brayso continues, Amar lehen Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said to them, V'alo kvar nemar, doesn't it already say in Sefer Malachim? It says, V'kitas nechash nechoshas. It says that he crushed the nechash nechoshas. This was the copper snake that Moshe Rabbeinu made. This is talking about Chizkiyo HaMelech. The full pasuk over here in Sefer Malachim, Hu heiser es habamos v'shiber es hamatzevos. He removed the bamos, he broke the matzevos, v'choras es ha'ashera. He cut the ashera tree. V'chitas nechash nechoshas asher asa Moshe. And he destroyed the Nechash HaNechoshes. He crushed the Nechash HaNechoshes that Moshe Rabbeinu made. And so over here also you see that he's essentially grinding it up. He's destroying it. And so that's evidence that that's considered good destruction of Avodah Zara. And the Brisa continues, Amru Lo, again, the Chachamim, they said back to him, they said back to Rabbi Yossi, Misham Raya, you bring a proof from over there, Harehu Omer, but the Pasuk says by the creation of the Nechash HaNechoshes. It says in Sefer Bamidbar, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Hashem said to Moshe, Asei L'cha Saraf, you have to make for yourself the Saraf, and it means L'cha, Mishal L'cha, it means you should make it from your own property, meaning to say it was the private property of Moshe Rabbeinu. Ve'ein Adam Oser Davar Sheino Shalo, if it became an Avodah Zarah later on, but it didn't belong to Klal Yisrael, so a person cannot make something forbidden that doesn't belong to him, so really it never gets the status of Avodah Zarah, because it was owned privately by Moshe Rabbeinu, and they couldn't render it in Avodah Zarah. And so therefore, V'hasam Bidinu, Dechsuse Lo Havit Sarach, really they didn't need to crush it up. Elakevan Dechazah Dekato Yisrael Basrei, but once he saw that Klal Yisrael was straying after it, and they treated it like an Avodah Zarah, so Amad V'chitaso, so he got up and he destroyed it, he got up and he ground it up, he crushed it, and so again, that's why in that particular case he did that, because it wasn't really an Avodah Zarah, but it could be if it was a real Avodah Zarah, that would not be a sufficient kind of destruction. And the Brisa continues, Amar Lahem, he said to them, Rabbi Yossi said to the Chachamim, V'halo kvar nemar, but doesn't it say in the Pasuk and say for Shmuel? It says, Vayazvu shames hatzabeim, they left their idols over there, Vayisoim David v'anoshav, David and his men, they carried them off. And the Gemara, the Brisa rather, is understanding that Vayisoim means they ground it up into dust and they threw it into the wind. As the Gemara now clarifies, Umay mashma dahai Vayisoim David, how do we know that the term Vayisoim David is Lishna Dezeruyehu? How do we know that it's a language of winnowing? Kidimitargim Rav Yosef, it's like Rav Yosef translated the following pasuk. This is a pasuk in Yeshayahu. It says Tizreim v'ruach tisoim. Again, it uses that word tisoim. Umitargamina, and we translate that pasuk as Tizrinun v'ruach tataltalinun. We understand it to mean that you winnow, and then the wind will carry it away. And so that's what it means over here when it says Vayisoim David v'anashav. It essentially means they ground up the idol and they threw it into the wind. And the Gemara continues, Amru Lo, they said back to him, the Chachamim said back to Rabbi Yossi, Misham Raya, you bring a proof from over there, from that pasuk. Harehu Omer, but it says in the pasuk in Divrei Hayamim, and this pasuk in Divrei Hayamim is the same episode. It says Vayisarfu b'eish, that they burned it in fire. When we look at Vayisarfa and Vayisoim, it doesn't use the word Vayisoim over there. So Shmami no Vayisoim mamish. So you see that when it says Vayisoim in the pasuk in Sefer Shmuel, it really means that they actually carried it off. And so therefore, again, you don't see over here at all that they ground it up and they threw it into the wind. But the Gemara continues and asks, Mikol makam kashu krai hadadi, but nevertheless, don't we then have a contradiction in Psukim? In one place, the Pasuk says that what did David and his men do? Vayisoim, it says they carried it off. In the other Pasuk, it says Vayisarfu b'eish, that they burned it in fire. And to that, the Gemara says, Kid Rav Huna, that we can resolve like Rav Huna said. To Rav Huna Rami, because Rav Huna had the following contradiction in Psukim. Ksiv, it's written, Vayomer David Vayisarfu b'eish. On the one hand, it says again, they burned it in fire. But yet it's also written Vayisoim that they carried them away. And how do we answer that contradiction? And the Gemara says, Lo kash, it's not difficult. Kan kodem shabo itai hagiti, kan la'achar shabo itai hagiti. In one case we're talking before itai hagiti came, in the other case it was after. The idea over here is that once he came, he was a non-Jew, he was able to be mevatel the Avodah Zara. He was able to nullify it from being an Avodah Zara, therefore it was not necessary to burn it once he came. As the Gemara continues, Dechsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk, Vayikach esateres malka me'al rosho, it says they took the crown from his head, umishkola kikar zav, and it weighed a kikar of gold, and David HaMelech used that presumably as a crown. Now how is that possible? Umishari, is that really permitted? Isurei Hanoninu, this also was Isurei Hana. It was something that you weren't allowed to get any benefit. And that was also something that was used again for idols, for idol worship. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar of Nachman says, Itai Hagiti bo bitla, the same idea. Itai Hagiti came and he nullified it from being an Avodah Zara, and that's what's going on over here as well. And the Gemara continues and asks, Mishkola Kikar Zov, now if this crown weighed a kikar zav, hechi matzi manachla, how did he wear it on his head? It's too heavy. And the Gemara answers to that, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, Ru'uya lanuach al rosh David, it simply means that it was fit to sit on the head of David HaMelech. Rav Yossi Rav Chanina, Rav Yossi Rav Chanina says, Evan shoeves haisabah, there was like a magnet there to have his dorah, which lifted it up, it allowed it to rest there. And Rabbi Lazar says, Evan yikara haisabah, there was a precious stone within it, sheshave kikar zav, that was worth a kikar zav. It wasn't that it weighed a kikar kikar zav, it was that it was worth a kikar zahav. And Rashi explains, Zela vayisoim mamish, again we'll have to interpret vayisoim that they actually carried it. And Rashi says it means not lamima. What it actually means is that they took it with them. V'nen mehem, and they actually got hana from them. Umitchila amar la'avodav l'sarfan, and originally he said to the servants to burn them. Kidim efarish v'yazal, as the Gemara will explain. Mi v'yisrafu lo matzi los vinu l'rabbanan. Now you can't ask from the burning to the rabbanan. T'chol zman she'ein nidokan al yedei ksisha, because if you're not grinding it down, so eino nasa zevel, it's not going to be fertilizer. So vayisarfim is not a question on the rabbanan. And now the vayisoim is being understood as they actually carried it off and they actually got hana. And the Gemara says, Kashu Krei Hadadi. Again, the Gemara asks, well, it's a contradiction in Psukim. Vayisarfu mashma asr bahana, because burning sounds like it's forbidden to get benefit. Vayisoim mashma nenemehem, and Vayisoim sounds like they did get benefit. And the Gemara answered to that, Kodem Shabbat Itai ubitla, because Itai came and he nullified it. So before he came, Amar David l'sarfim, David said to burn them. Uva Itai ubitla, again, Itai came and burned it, and nullified it rather. V'hadar Vayisoim David, then David HaMelech was able to carry it off, was able to get benefit. Itai Hagiti over Kochavim Hayah, as the Rashi explains. Itai Hagiti wasn't over Kochavim, that's why he was able to nullify the Avoda Zara. Ateres Malcolm, what's that talking about? The crown of Malcolm b'vnei Ammon Koi, that's the Bnei Ammon. V'avodas Kocham Shalam Malcolm Shema. The word Malcolm over here doesn't mean their king. It does not mean their king. What it means is it's referring to an Avoda Zara, which was called Malcolm. Al Shem Maluch. It was called Malcolm because of the idea of kingship. That's why it was called that. And so again, that crown was taken, and the Gemara then said, Hechi Matzi Monachla. How was he able to put it on? It was taken by David HaMelech, but how could he wear it? V'alo kaved shishim monav, it's very heavy. U'ma'odi kaved, it's very heavy. Again, Ukruksiv ati al rosh David. And so the Gemara then said, Amar Rav Yehuda says, Hai vati al rosh David, when it says it was on the head of David, lav de monachla, he wasn't wearing it on his head. Elachi kamar chashuva u'ra'uya leDavid, it was fit for David, meaning, sha'asui lemidas rosho v'almasu kedel kamon, it was made according to the measurement of his head. And then Evan Shoevis, there was a magnet, derech oso Evan lagbia hamateches, this kind of magnet, this kind of stone rather, is able to lift up metal like a magnet, v'letlosa ba'avir, and able to make it hang in the air, to have his doris la shaiso nosas la Torah magbiyas, it lifted it up. And finally the last answer was sheshava kikar zav, it was worth a kikar zav, hainu mishkala kikar zav shkulahi kikar zav. When it says in the pasuk mishkala kikar zav, it means to say that it was equal, it was equivalent, it was worth a kikar zahav. And the Gemara continues at the two dots with reference to the crown of David HaMelech. The pasuk in Tehillim says, Zos haisali ki pikudecha notzarti, this was to me because I kept your commandments. Ma'ika Amar, what exactly is this pasuk saying? And the Gemara says, Hachi Kamar, this is what the pasuk means to say. Bischar shepikudecha notzarti, because I kept your commandments, Zos haisali la'edus, this crown is a testimony for me. And the Gemara says, Ma'yedusa, what testimony are we talking about? Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, Shahaya meinicha b'makom tefillin, he wore this crown in the place of his tefillin, v'hol maso, and it fit him perfectly, so it was a testimony on behalf of David HaMelech. But the Gemara asks, V'abaya nuchet tefillin, but how could he wear it in the place of his tefillin? Didn't he need to wear tefillin? And the Gemara says to that, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says, Makom yesh barosh, there's enough space on the head, sheroy laniach bo shtei tefillin, where you really have enough space to put two tefillin, and therefore he was able to wear the crown and the tefillin. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says in Divrei Hayamim, and this is by Yoash, Vayotziu as Ben HaMelech, they took out the son of the king, Vayitnu olav es HaNezer, they placed upon him the crown, V'yaso edus, and the testimony. And the Gemara explains, Nezer, what does Nezer refer to? Zuklila, that refers to the crown. And edus, what's the testimony? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, edus hu lebeis David, it's testimony for the house of David HaMelech, shekol haroy lemalchus hol maso, that anyone who was fit to be the king, so it would fit him properly, the crown would fit, v'chol she'ein and if the person was not fit for the kingship, so then ein hol maso, then it would not fit him properly. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says in Sefer Melachim, V'Adonia ben Chagis misnase lemor, Adonia ben Chagis, he lifted himself up, saying, Ani emloch, I'm going to be the king. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Yehuda says, the Rav said, Shemisnase leholmo v'lo holmo, so he was trying to lift himself up that the crown should fit him, but it did not fit him. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says in Sefer Melachim, also by Adonia, the pasuk says, Vayaslo rechev u'parashim, he made for himself chariots and horsemen, V'chamishim ish ratzim lefana, 50 men running in front of him. And the Gemara says, Ma'irivu sayu, what is so special about these 50 people? Any wealthy person can have people running before him. And the Gemara says, Tana was taught, Kulam netule techol, all of them, their spleens were taken out, V'chakuke kapos, and the soles of their feet, they were hollowed out, and the idea is they'd be able to run faster that way. V'chakuke kapos haraglayim hayu, again, the soles of of their feet were hollowed out, and that was unique about these individuals, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Dalid Amud Beis.